Yes, good afternoon, comrades. I will just start. Good afternoon to you. This is a special update following the speech by Grace Mugabe. Yes, we have our first viewer. Hi, how are you doing? Hi, Itai, how are you doing? Lucky, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. David, how are you? Yes, Mildred, how are you doing? So, Dr. Grace, or am I Grace or Dr. Cables, just concluded her speech at Rufaro Stadium. And I just thought, I always come live on Fridays, but I thought this is kind of a special issue that we need to discuss as citizens. We cannot keep quiet after such a speech, which poses national, which is actually poses security issues to the nation, but also a speech that effectively has shown us what Grace is intending to do. Not only did she attack Mnangagwa, which is their internal politics, but she has also effectively declared her national presidential candidature. So these are the issues that we need to discuss. And also, let's discuss around the ideas. What can we do as citizens? Already we understand there's a lot of work going on. Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe is going around these communities, rural communities, and marginalized communities, trying to sensitize and to provide information to the people so that they can vote wisely next year. But comrades, let's have a platform where we can share this issue. And if some of you can join me, please indicate that you want to be added so you can also come live and express your own emotions, feelings, and ideas. Lucky, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. Mike, Chrissy, thank you for joining. Thomas, thank you for joining. So I think many people were following the live broadcast by Grace, and we can all conclude with certainty that Grace Mugabe now poses, she's now a security threat to the nation of Zimbabwe. So we don't have to see this in terms of factional politics in ZANU-PF, but now we need to look within the broader context and its implication to the security, to peace and security of our nation. So as Zimbabweans, we have to realize that factional fighting in ZANU-PF is now a security issue. It's now a security threat. And this is very important. Hi, Ratizo, thank you for joining. So this is very important for us to emphasize that it's now a security threat, and it's no longer only a ZANU-PF factional issue. Let's not treat it only as a ZANU-PF factional issue, but it's now an issue of that affects the peace and security of our nation. And as citizens, we have to be actively talking about this, sharing ideas, and the space that we can also fill in as citizens, because the Zimbabwe is degenerating into a civil strife. Zimbabwe is degenerating in a civil strife. I think for some of you who have been following my live broadcast, I have said this, I think about 4 to 5 months ago. Zimbabwe is going into a civil strife. A civil war is imminent in the country, and a possible coup d'etat is imminent in the country. So these are issues that are going to affect us all as Zimbabweans. So let's not think about this or the speech that Grace has made, speeches that were made yesterday by Grace and the president as ZANU-PF or factional issues. Let's put this into a broader perspective. So, and give them the eminence that these issues deserves at national level. So please, if you can share this video. What is happening in Zimbabwe, we have effectively seen a bedroom coup, and Grace Mugabe is in charge. She is in charge. Grace is already in charge. It's not about, so let's stop talking about December. Let's stop talking about Grace planning to take over the vice presidents. From her speech today, from her speech yesterday, Grace Mugabe is effectively the president of Zimbabwe. She has effectively actually declared her candidature to take over from Robert Mugabe. So when we talk of 2018, let's think about it in that perspective. And also, let's look at how ZANU-PF is organizing its campaigning machinery. We have seen that ZANU-PF is organizing its campaigning machinery around youths, hence the interface rallies. But we have also seen ZANU-PF organizing around the chiefs. We understand chiefs, a lot of vehicles, 226 vehicles were bought for traditional chiefs to coerce villagers. And today, we have also seen that this campaign is around churches, especially white garment churches. And those who are following our page, you can also see that there is a video that is going viral about white garment churches who were exactly preaching these issues, encouraging their membership and followership to vote ZANU-PF at the expense of the opposition, or at the expense of change. So, Gift, what you are saying, the early we accept the possibility, the better for our health. Yes, Gift. I think it is important to understand that is something that is now very real in our eyes. When we started, or when many people started this discussion, and you, Gift, you were also some of those people who were writing about this very early. When people started this possibility, people thought it was a joke. It's no longer a joke anymore. It's a reality now in our eyes. And as citizens, let's discuss around this, and how can we as citizens avoid this tragedy from happening. This is what we have to do as we go into 2018. What are the possibilities that our opposition can get organized and take advantage of this? These are also issues that we have to discuss, because as citizens, we are doing a lot of work, a lot of mobilization in communities. People are registering to vote. We can see some excitement in segments of societies who normally don't partake in electoral processes, getting excited. So we also have to contribute in the national discourse around this issue, because what is happening in ZANU-PF now, it's a security threat to us all. The country is descending into a civil war. There is a very, very strong possibility there, especially when the Munangaga camp is so quiet about the whole issue. Then you have to wonder, what's their strategy? But we have also understand and seen that there are so many people who have invested heavily in Timor-Leste, people who have believed so much that Mnangagwa can be the possible successor. And I can say with certainty that some of these elements will not just cave in. Some of these elements will not just cave in. And on the other hand, Mugabe and Grace Mugabe, they are effectively declaring that Chinunde Chao, which means this is their thing. They are going to take the presidents. It's going to be a Mugabe dynasty. And it's going to go to Grace. After Grace, then one of the sons or Bona can take over. So we are moving into a Mugabe dynasty. And events as they look currently, this can happen. We are the only ones who can avoid this. We can, as citizens, prevent this from happening. Right? And one way that we have always proposed as Zimbabwe Yadzoka is that we have to mobilize in our communities. Let's be present in our communities. Let's inform our parents, our grandparents, and our relatives about the condition of the country and the possibility of where our country is heading to. So you see Zimbabwe Yadzoka comrades doing this day in, day out. But what Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe is doing, it's not enough on its own. We want every hand on the deck here. The situation is so critical, and of course a lot of people are paying attention, which is a move in the right direction. But we need to see more action we need to see more action. So I know as Zimbabweans, we like to discuss these issues. We like to make jokes about everything. This is an issue that we have to take seriously. We don't have to joke around this issue. We are moving into a Grace Mugabe presidency. We are also moving into a civil war or civil strife. There is that possibility. What is happening in ZANU-PF is now an issue of national security. It's no longer a political or something that is happening in a single political party. Yes, so what are you saying? Hamuchke Gura, you are saying civil war, who will fight who? Chiwenga is reported to have already apologized to Mugabe. Yeah, well, I understand that's your way of looking at it, but I think there are a lot of, there's a lot of investment that has been done by the Team Lacoste or some people in the Team Lacoste. So we may move into a situation where this may not be an organized coup, but obviously when we say civil strife, it means there's going to be some form of unrest. The position I'm putting forward here, or something that is very likely, it's not that Grace Mugabe will not just ascend to presidents without a form of resistance from some certain sections in the society. If the issue is not handled properly, or if citizens we don't show up, there is going to be, and let's watch the space closely. Let's watch how the relations has degenerated in the ZANU-PF. People started, saying that this was a gimmick, a campaign gimmick, but I think it is clear to everyone that we are already, this is a potential national crisis that can plunge our nation into a civil strife. So let's pay attention to that. You may say that Chiwenga has apologized, but it also depends with the expansiveness of, of forces that are not so happy with what is going on. So the fact that Chiwenga removed his shirt and approached, Mugabe to apologize, we should not just dismiss the possibility of a civil war or civil strife based on that. Because that's one event that you are just, unless of course you have got so much information that I may not have. But when you assess what is going on in ZANU-PF and what is on the ground, the country is very, very fatal, or the country can be said to be moving into a civil strife. Anything is possible. Tafadzwa, you are saying, said Zimbabwe is now a private property. Yeah, so this is the attempt, but let's understand that, there are also some undercurrents. There is also a lot of resistance going on. And if you see, I think one thing that we have to look at is how the Mugabes are also kind of frightened from this situation. If you interpret this situation the way I do, you can see that the Mugabes themselves, they are not so comfortable in the position they are. They are also in an enchanted territory. And they are not so sure how to deal with this issue or how to deal with Mnangagwa. So we can easily dismiss Team Lacoste or G40, whatever, because before these were just factional issues and it was nothing of our interest. But it has degenerated now into a possible security threat for our country. And we can be naive to just dismiss that Mnangagwa or Team Lacoste is done. So there is that possibility. We have to think, and like Gifty say, we have to kind of accept the possible realities so that we can try to find a way of dealing with these issues. But what we can do, if we are going to have elections next year, okay, because we are supposed to have elections next year, but mark what I'm saying, like if we are going to have these elections, we need to mass mobilize. And as citizens, let's mass mobilize, because there is a possibility that we may not have those elections next year, but we have to mobilize as if these elections are tomorrow or next week. Because that's the only peaceful way that as citizens we can rescue our country and our nation. So when we are talking of mobilization, It's no longer an issue to do with a new Zimbabwe. It's no longer an issue about you benefiting from the residuals of the system, or that probably what is going on the ground may not directly affect you. It's now something that affects the whole nation. The country is degenerating into a potential civil war, civil strife, whichever way you may describe it. But it's a very, very strong possibility. Very strong possibility. Because what Grace Mugabe did today was not only lambasting Mnangagwa, but it was her declaring her presidential candidate. I think even yesterday, if you paid attention to the speech, she effectively has expressed her interest openly for the first time and say that she is going to succeed the husband. Okay, so let's pay attention to this. Let's pray for our nation. But more than praying, let's act. Let's do something as citizens, because it is still in our hands. If we mass mobilize for 2018, if we mobilize as if these elections are coming tomorrow, we will defeat ZANU-PF. We are presented with a very, very good opportunity to defeat ZANU-PF. How? We have got already Masvingo, we have Midlands, and these provinces have been lambasted. And to some of you who have been following my post, you remember when the Masvingo jokes were made and they become viral. I was of the position that these were not just jokes about Masvingo, but this was an organized campaign, a systematic way of starting attack around the province of Masvingo or the Kalanga people. And this was something that was actually organized, a strategy. And as usual, Zimbabweans, we always buy into these, silly things, silly jokes. It's very easy for them to, for us to buy into their ideas and strategies. And I was very strong that these are not jokes. This is a systematic way of attacking a certain group of people in our society. This is how it started. It started as mere jokes. And most of the people now are somehow guilty for spreading that, those jokes about Masvingo, that Masvingo, this. So let's pay attention when these things are floating around, because they also understand that we are spending most of our time on social media. So they will try by all means to use social media as well, for us to be indirectly or directly involved in their agendas. So as citizens, let's be careful. But I have always said time again, Zimbabwe Yadzoka have always said this. Please, Zimbabwe, let's mobilize. Let's mobilize for 2018. Let's shout, let's make a lot of noise, so that our political opposition, they form one robust coalition. If we can manage to have a robust coalition, if we can manage to mass mobilize, there is no way a fragmented ZANU-PF can defeat a united opposition. This is something our opposition leaders have to understand. This is something as citizens we have to keep on hammering. And it is also clear that failure to have one robust coalition from the opposition, it also means the opposition is selling out the struggle. This is something that we have to emphasize. There is a chance to liberate Zimbabwe. There is a chance to liberate Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF is fragmented. ZANU-PF can lose Masvingo. ZANU-PF can lose Midlands. ZANU-PF always does badly in Matabeleland provinces. ZANU-PF always does badly in Harare. Okay? And when it comes to Mashonaland provinces, we now have NPP. Mai Mujuru in Mashonaland provinces, whatever you think about her, whatever your views about Mai Mujuru is not the problem now for the opposition. The problem for the opposition or for Zimbabwe now is not Mai Mujuru. The problem is bigger than that. The country can possibly descend into a civil war. If the opposition is not united, the succession issues in ZANU-PF are getting ugly. And they will get uglier. Let's not think that it's a December thing, and post-December there's going to be quiet around these issues. No. There are so many people who have invested heavily in Team Lakusti Mnangagwa, people who have invested emotionally, and it's not going to go out quietly. This is not going to go out quietly. But what we can do as citizens now is to take advantage of the situation, mobilize Masvingo, mobilize Midlands. We know Matabeleland province are always there. And in Mashonaland provinces, Mai Mujuru will take 15 to 20%. And this is very conservative. In all Mashonaland provinces, Mai Mujuru can reach 15 to 20%. And that is a substantial amount that ZANU-PF cannot afford to lose to take the presidency. So what we have to do is to think strategically how as citizens we can also influence, how the opposition progressive forces can also become our allies in us as citizens realizing what we are fighting for day in, day out. Because as citizens we are investing a lot, we are doing campaigns every day. Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe, this week alone we have carried 3 campaigns in 3 different provinces. Okay. And if the opposition, all opposition parties, 70 if you can say, as much as we have, if all of them were doing the same, definitely the country is a liberated zone. But let's understand that Mugabe himself yesterday liberated Masvingo, he liberated Midlands. And we have to take advantage of this. We have to take advantage of this. The opposition must take advantage of this. But the question is the current opposition ready to take advantage of this? Like you are saying, this is a real crisis this time. Yes, it is a real crisis now. No doubt about it. Teresa, you are saying there is a grave concern. There is a grave concern, and there is a strong possibility that Zimbabwe is descending into civil strife. There is a strong possibility that Zimbabwe is descending into civil strife. Prayers only are not enough. We need action. Citizens, let's act. Let's move into our villages. Let's provide information. We have seen that the chiefs will be used as usual, as campaign tools. They will be used to regiment people in rural communities. They will frog march our parents to go and vote for ZANU-PF. We have seen this is happening. We have also seen the campaign for ZANU-PF is centered around youth, and we have also seen the interface rallies. Okay, we have also seen that the campaign for ZANU-PF this time is also centered around churches, especially white garment churches, and we have expressed these issues, and I have personally challenged the opposition leadership, especially when it came to the issue of traditional chiefs, that there was a possibility to challenge the assertions from Charumbira in a court of law. We didn't see any action. Yesterday, we posted, or I think on social media, there is a viral now letter that is going around from ZANU-PF on ZANU-PF letterheads that was coercing schools to provide transport for this rally that has been, carried out today in Rufaro Stadium. These are some things that we can challenge as well as citizens. These are the things the legal minds in the opposition need to talk around and to see how best we can proceed with these issues. Because schools in Harare, schools around the country were coerced to transport, the congregates that you have seen today. And there's quietness around it. There's clear evidence this happened, but we hope there's going to be some form of action. Because if we don't use all the possibilities that we have in Zimbabwe, because we have got very, very little opportunities to challenge the status quo. But if we can, let's utilize every opportunity around. So let's keep on speaking out about this. Let's keep on speaking against our opposition for not being proactive, for not speaking out. We are not seeing some press conferences. We are not seeing some reactions after after all these issues, today, after this speech, is a speech which has got implications for national security. The country can wake up tomorrow in a civil war. The country can go into a civil war in two weeks, 1 month. And we don't see a clear agitation from the opposition camp. The opposition leadership is quiet as all these things are happening. So let's speak out as citizens, but let's also force through the different channels, so that the opposition becomes so engaged with these issues of national importance. Because we have got an election next year, and that's the only chance we can peacefully transform or change our society. That's the only way we can do that. Failure to do that, a contested outcome, the country is plunging further and further into crisis. And when that happens, definitely it's ZANU-PF's problem, but the opposition also has to take a portion of their blame there. Because I think we can see that the citizens of Zimbabwe have shown from 2016, 2017, that we can play a significant role. But when we don't have the opposition political leadership, anchoring our efforts, we are just floating as well. Because what we can do is to make a lot of noise, is to can reach grassroots, but they also need to use their political clout to challenge, whether for electoral reforms or to also, do some campaign activities, which we don't see a lot. Paul, you are saying, I am praying for Zimbabwe and her people. Yeah, thank you. I think that's what we have to do. We have to pray for Zimbabwe, but also we need action around this issue. And citizens, we are doing something. I'm not saying that as citizens we are not doing something. You can see Zimbabwe Yadzoka comrades day in, day out, carrying out some successful campaigns, and most of these campaigns are out of their own initiatives as citizens, because they feel that they have to do something in their local communities. But it may still not be enough. It may not be enough. We need to be involved, all of us at the same time, and our political leadership in the opposition, they have to wake up. They have to come back from the sabbatical and start to address these issues of national importance, and start to go around spreading this message, and start to strategizing on how to take advantage of these ugly wars in ZANU-PF. Mind you, we have to focus. Our enemy here is Robert Mugabe. It's a Mugabe dynasty. So the election message has to be packaged in a way that is going to be Zimbabwe versus the Mugabes. And this message has to be campaigned effectively to reach almost every village. That what we are fighting now is no longer a battle between political parties or political affiliations, because we have been struggling with the issue of polarization in our politics. But what we are fighting now is a Mugabe dynasty, and we need to take advantage of this. So when we package our message, when the opposition package their message, it also has to be around these fundamentals. Farai, you are saying civil war, how? Which civil groupings are you talking of? The investment you are talking of, which invested? You are not reading my comments. No, Farai, I am reading your comments. And my comment to your comments is to say, we cannot just ignore. We cannot just ignore to say that ED is finished and let's forget about it. We have to understand that around the succession issues of ZANU-PF, there is a clear possibility that the country can descend into a civil war or civil strife. What you are asking is for me to specifically point to specific tribes or specific groups in our society. This I cannot do, but I think the general sentiment is that we have also seen this even on these interface rallies. Mnangagwa is still has a sizable support, both within ZANU-PF and probably without ZANU-PF, outside of ZANU-PF, and also, I mean, even issues around, his involvement with the international community, how the international community may want to influence the political processes or democratic processes of our country. These are things that I will not go into this live broadcast, but my point is, don't just dismiss Mnangagwa as finished. You have to look around all the details and niceties. There is still a chance that the succession issues within ZANU-PF presents a real threat, a real possibility for a civil war for Zimbabwe. And this is something that we don't have to take lightly or to dismiss. The signs are there in Zimbabwe that the country can descend into a civil war or into a civil strife of some sort. And let's pay attention to those issues. If that's, of course, our prayers and our wishes is that must not happen. That must not happen. But the possibility is there. So you are right, it may not happen. And if it may not happen, that is a good thing for the nation. But let's also look at the possibilities. There is that possibility. And what role can we play as citizens to try to avoid that possibility? Yes, avoid Masraha. My problem with Zimbabwe Yadzoka and various formations is to mobilize without being clear on who to vote for. You guys lack clarity, which borders around fear. Avoid. I understand that these are issues that are raised a lot with people when we are doing our campaigns. And also, I need to acknowledge your article that you wrote. I think it was in Newsday a couple of days ago, which was also warning the country of the possibility of a civil war. I think it was a very good analysis, and we also shared it on our page. And it generated a lot of interest. So, Farai, I would also advise you to read this article from Avoid and see that this kind of thinking is not something, it's not just hogwash, something that we can just dismiss at face value. But we really need to look around all the possibilities. But coming back to your concern, you also have to understand that what the citizens movement are doing, or what Zimbabwe Yadzoka is doing, is moving away from the politics of personalities. Because this has been the problem for Zimbabwe, and it is still the problem that we do have both in the opposition and in the ruling party. It's a politics of personalities, where the political leadership in different political parties effectively captures their political parties. Hence, you can see that when some political leaders are not available for duty, you may see that activities for political parties just come to a dead stop, dead end. You don't see some form of activities. So, what Zimbabwe Yadzoka is doing is not campaigning for personalities, but we are campaigning for institutions. It is important for a nation and for a people to understand as a citizen that we have to elevate institutions above individuals. So what we are campaigning for, we are very, very clear as Zimbabwe Yadzoka, as we move around, that we are campaigning for a coalition. We are campaigning for a united front for Zimbabwe. And you also have to understand that when we started these campaigns as Zimbabwe Yadzoka, probably 16 to 18 months ago, even those in the mainstream opposition were not buying to the idea of a coalition. There was a lot of negative talk around it. But we went around and show clearly that this is what the citizens were demanding at grassroots. Then you started to see a buy-in from political institutions. But as we are speaking now, we have got three groupings. So we have MDC Alliance, we also have the PRC led by Mai Mujuru, and we also have CORD. And our campaign now is one coalition, one voice. We are saying one coalition, one voice, one vote. So we are encouraging all these three groups to come together to form one robust coalition. Because we have to understand that even if we approach those coming elections as three opposition groupings or factions, the opposition vote is also fragmented in that aspect. And we may run into that 2008 problem again. Something we can avoid if our leaders outrightly form one coalition. But then the question is, when we are advocating for any institution, we also don't have to impose a leadership. because the idea around a coalition is for our country to transition into a true democracy. Because we can all agree that Zimbabwe is not a true democracy. What we need are institutions that can necessitate us to move towards that. This is why we are campaigning for an institution. When it comes to who is going to lead, so when you say people must vote for a coalition, the emphasis must be on the idea of a coalition. What is it that the coalition is going to do for the people? Why should people vote for a coalition? Why should people vote for one presidential candidate, one MP candidate, and so on and so forth? Not going into community and saying vote for Mujuru, vote for Changrai, vote for Biti. We are not doing this because this is what we are moving away from. So I think I have kind of answered what you are saying. We are very clear. I'm sorry if you don't see the clarity. It may be that we don't see or we don't agree on some details, but we are very, very clear that we are campaigning for a coalition. And a coalition is an institution we are demanding. As of now, we have got 3 coalitions, and that's not what we are campaigning for. And we are not going to favor one coalition against the other. We have to force, the political leaders to see to it that what we are fighting for is an issue of national importance. Thank you, Rufaro, for joining. Lincoln, Tinashe, how are you doing? I'm doing great. Joshua, thank you for joining. Tinashe, you are saying there are no signs of a civil war in Zimbabwe. Mugabe will lose the elections. Yes. So Tinashe, what you are saying is very, very great, and I'm also happy that you see to it that there is a chance that Mugabe can lose elections. But we must not also take it for granted. The opposition has to form a united front. The opposition has to be united against ZANU-PF. And of course, because mind you, Tinashe, we are going into these elections in the absence of electoral reforms. So ZEC is still in charge, and as you know, or as I can put forward, ZEC is effectively an arm of ZANU-PF here. So we cannot rule out the possibility of rigging. I have said this in a number of, some broadcasts, that you don't see the panic around BVR registration in the ZANU-PF camp. So there could be something there. I think you understand ZANU-PF has a new registration system for their party card system, which is more or less the same as BVR. So you don't know what's going on there. We also don't know, and I think the opposition also is not sure about the server, how the information is going to be stored, who is going to be in charge. So all those details, you have to understand that there are strong possibilities that ZANU-PF is going to rig again, to actually rig the actual numbers, and also the pre-election rigging they are doing now, which is giving them an advantage. So it's not, let's not take it for granted that Mugabe has just lost the elections. We need to coalesce as progressive forces. We need to speak with one voice. We need one presidential candidate for us to claim the presidents, especially the presidents, given that, our executive arm has more powers than all other arms. So we really need to have that. I think that will be very, very critical. So the idea again goes back to us doing mass mobilization in our communities. Let's not take it for granted that ZANU-PF is already defeated. Ratidzo, you are saying I doubt we will get to the elections. Yeah, well, you may be right. There is a very, given the amount of vitriol that is going on now in the succession issues around, in ZANU-PF, it's too ugly. And yes, there is a chance that we may not have elections next year. But as I have emphasized, let's mobilize as if elections are there tomorrow. Let's mobilize as if elections are going to be in February and March. So we need to see a hive of activity, among the progressive forces. Us as citizens movements, and also the opposition, opposition political parties. But we also need to see a kind of a point of convergence where 3 different coalitions start to earnestly discuss issues around having one broad alliance to face ZANU-PF, because we need that. Paul, you are saying this is endgame. Yes, we have to mobilize for that as an endgame. Teresa, citizens must realize that the military is very vocal in Zimbabwe. Yes, I think this is something that that we may take for granted as Zimbabweans, the role that the military plays. We have seen 2008, it was effectively the military that took over. So you can say in 2008 we actually had a coup d'etat where Mugabe actually imposed himself on us through the military. So we cannot discount this. And I mean, when you see these interface rallies, when you see the attacks going on Mnangagwa, the common sentiment is that Mnangagwa is done, Mnangagwa is finished. I don't dispute that, but we also need to look beyond the veneer. That there could be something there. Kwandinobva inini kwedu kwana mkumanika lenduku zvinonzi dzimwe nguva pasi pesadza panenge pane baka yawo. So when you are given a plate of sadza and then don't just assume that there is no relish to take it with, because sometimes the relish is behind the sadza. So what I'm saying is that let's not be dismissive to the issues that there is no chance that in Zimbabwe there can be a coup. There's no chance in Zimbabwe that there can be civil strife. The possibility is always there, and the military is quite strong, and we cannot exactly know the state of the military to say Mugabe has got complete control of the military. No, we may not say that exactly, because we have also seen that something is troubling the Mugabes. Something is troubling the Mugabes. David Coltart today, I think on Facebook, or was it on Twitter, he said he has been in cabinet, in so many meetings in the cabinet. And what David Coltart saw yesterday, the gestures by Mugabe, how angry he was when he was talking to Mnangagwa, that was the first time he has seen Mugabe in that rage. I have also watched Mugabe speaking in many national, international forums. I haven't seen Mugabe that angry like he was yesterday. So there is something going on here. There is something that is bothering the Mugabes here. There is something much more than we know, than you and I know. But there is something bothering them. And there is a kind of thinking that this might not be an easy thing to do, as we are just dismissing it. Mugabe was so angry. He was visibly shaking yesterday. I have never seen him. I have never seen him. And I challenge all of you who are watching to tie when was the last time you saw Mugabe being that angry. And we have also seen this when, last time at the airport, the gestures. Also, they indicate a Mugabe who is very unusually angry. So something is going on. So it's not as easy as ABC as we may want to put it across, especially on social media. Let's think deeper. Let's look deeper. If there is nothing, then that's what we want. If we are not going to have a civil war, if there is no possibility of a coup, then that's a good thing for our country, because we can still push for constitutional ways or democratic ways of upstaging ZANU-PF. Bernard, you are saying the way Grace is attacking the veterans is a mistake. If Mugabe was not afraid, he could have simply fired Mnangagwa. I bet by my last blood, Chiwenga's apology did not change his stance to a G40. Yeah, so this is something that that I have been saying in this broadcast, that the fact that Chiwenga removed his shirt and walked without shoes and socks, is apologizing to Mugabe or to the first family. We must not just use this to say that Mugabe suddenly he has got complete control over the military or the security forces. If we do that, I think that argument may be kind of naive. Let's think deeper and look at the possibilities here. There is something that is bothering the Mugabes. There is something that is bothering the Mugabes. Mugabe has got the power to fire Mnangagwa if he wants. They have a chance to kind of, investigate Mnangagwa around some issues and criminalize the whole thing and try to, to make him, to face the courts or something like that. Or he can face some disciplinary actions in the court and in the part. All these possibilities are very, very much. Yesterday, Grace Mugabe threatened that ZANU-PF may take disciplinary action against Mnangagwa. I don't think this is going to happen. So they are trying to use a special Congress, of course, to do that, to try to legitimize or sanitize the process. But you could see something is bothering the Mugabes here. So let's not just dismiss this, and to say that because Chiwenga apologized to the first family, so that's the end of it. This silence that we see around, we saw Mnangagwa yesterday even clapping when he was being lambasted. Of course, even myself, that is completely foolish. But who knows what is around, what's going on behind our backs? One thing for sure, I have never seen Mugabe that angry. The Mugabes are running scared. I think I posted on my wall some time back that the Mugabes are frightened about something, that the Mugabes are scared about something. We may not exactly know what it is, but something is going on there. So let's not just discuss this, dismiss it, I mean. Thank you for watching this, Roslyn. Paul, you are saying, together we can accomplish more. Yeah, we can do this. We can achieve something as citizens. Something that we can do first and foremost is to make sure that we are mobilizing for 2018 elections, because elections always give us a chance to remove the sitting government constitutionally, because this is what we have to do. We don't advocate for violence. We advocate for peaceful means, to elect our leaders. And we have this opportunity next year. We have got elections coming next year. So let's keep on encouraging each other as citizens. If you are already supporting some citizens movement that are doing work on the ground, keep on doing that. If you are not doing that, find a movement that is doing the work that you think is going to contribute towards voter mobilization of our people, and support them. And when you decide to support them, ask them for some accountability measures. Don't just finance or don't just donate your money without being satisfied, about how that movement internally handles its funds. Or so it's something also that we as citizens have to encourage each other, because as citizens movement, if we are providing an alternative, it also have to do with the issues around governance and internal, the way we handle our internal issues as well, including transparency and accountability. Teresa, you are saying brace. Yes, so I think you all understand, or you may know by now, that I always do my live broadcast on Friday. But after listening to the speech by Grace Mugabe today, I thought it could be foolish if we don't kind of respond or create a space where we can discuss the possibilities here. So I think what I've picked from that speech is that Grace Mugabe, or the Mugabes, are effectively going for the broke. That Grace Mugabe is not only now campaigning for the VP post, but for the national presidential, and she has actually offered her candidature. From yesterday you can read this, from today you can read this. So it's not something that we can just sweep under carpet. And also, we may not just need to assume an opposition victory. As I'm speaking now, the opposition is fragmented. As I'm speaking now, I personally am not happy with the level of activities on the ground by the opposition camp. And many people are not. In our Zimbabwe Yadzoka WhatsApp forums on our page, we get a lot of concerns from people in many local communities. That they are facing so many challenges, but the opposition is not showing up. for some reason, the opposition has not activated its party structures. So the party structures of our oppositions are not in full gear. I don't know why, but we have to ask them, why is this so? Because we don't see, even when people are facing a lot of challenges around acquiring, birth certificates and IDs, or when it comes to the registration processes, a lot of anomalies there, and people are not being assisted. So, because we should, all constituencies have got members of representatives, all councils have got, of course, members of representatives. But even if in those areas where ZANU-PF has got, is controlling those seats and wards, we must have some kind of shadow councillors, people who can be readily available to assist the citizens. That's not happening in many places. In urban areas, yes, we have seen some opposition, trying to help people with, especially the proof of residence and so on and so forth. But in remote areas, in peri-urban areas, marginalized communities, this is not happening. And this has to change if we are to avoid a civil war in our country, if we are to peacefully transition as a nation. Promise, thank you for joining, my brother. JJ Shelton, thank you for joining. Onias, thank you for joining. And I ask you, comrades who are watching, to share this video so that many citizens can also have an opportunity to listen to this later. Because we understand today it's a Sunday and many of our comrades are attending church services. But after listening to the address today by the First Lady of Zimbabwe, I thought it would be unjust for us to just keep quiet. Zimbabwe, it is very clear that the battle lines are drawn. It's very clear that the Mugabes are going for the broke. But let's not just assume that Mnangagwa is a sitting duck and he's just going to give it up. The silence may actually say a little bit more than we know. But we can potentially avoid this crisis as citizens. Let's coalesce around Zimbabwe Yadzoka, Maibuye, Zimbabwe. Mobilize in your rural village. If you want us to reach in any part of Zimbabwe, we have set up an infrastructure. And we have local people in those villages, in those wards, who can actually lead our campaigns there. The good thing about us as campaigning on a non-partisan basis or as citizens is that we are able to apply pressure both to the ruling party and also to the opposition elites. Although we are working for this with a common goal with the opposition, the immediate goal, that is to remove ZANU-PF and Mugabe, and now also potentially to avoid the Mugabe dynasty. As citizens, it is important for us to maintain our independence. It is very important for us to remain as independent as we can, so that we can also challenge the opposition leadership. This is important, and we must not take this away, this opportunity from ourselves. Promise Sunday, I have seen you have joined. If any of you is in a position to wants to join this discussion, to say something, please indicate that. Then I can add you, and then we can also hear some other thinking around this issue. Freeman Mtambara, welcome. How are you? Gru, how are you? Thank you for joining. Derek, how are you doing, my brother? Thank you for joining. Lord, please watch over our children in Zimbabwe. Yes, I don't want to kind of send some shivers or panic, but if we can analyze the events that have been going on recently in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF, the party is completely divided. Masvingo province, Midlands province, we have to capitalize on those provinces on the oncoming elections. And also we have to understand and to redefine what is it that we are fighting for. we are fighting for a transition in Zimbabwe. Let's not think that Zimbabwe is going to be a full democracy in 6 months. That's not going to be possible. Zimbabwe is not going to be a full democracy in 2018. So we have to understand that what we are looking for in Zimbabwe is a transition. And let's use all opportunities available to reach there. Let's stop talking our politics around personalities. Let's start support our institutions. And the institution that we are supporting as citizens is a grand coalition. Let's apply pressure to the political leadership to listen to the people. Let us make it clear that if the opposition fail to realize or to unite around this common goal, should it happen that the opposition is defeated, the citizens are defeated next year, citizens are going to disown political leadership in the opposition. Citizens are going to make it clear that the opposition leadership has sold out the struggle or are selling out the struggle. So it has to be clear. This is why we don't have to be close allies or blind followers of political elites of all type, ruling party or opposition, progressive forces. No. We can be allies of progressive opposition forces, yes, but we can still challenge them and question them. And also advance our thoughts around areas where we think they are not doing their best or they may do their best. Paul, then you are saying search more. Thank you for joining. Linda, thank you for joining. Teresa, you are saying the succession infighting within ZANU-PF is going to be our undoing if the opposition does not unite. Yes, so let's make sure that we capitalize around this. Let's make sure that we don't just talk of a fragmented ZANU-PF when we also in the progressive movement we are fragmented. So what we want to see, what I want to think the opposition leadership for the moment is that from about 40 to 30, 50 political parties, now we have got 3 groupings, 3 alliances, whichever way they are calling themselves now. So that's a good thing if we look at it from there. It was 30 different individual political parties. Now they have grouped themselves into 3 groups. But it's still not enough. It's still not enough. We want to see all those 3 groups forming one robust coalition. A robust coalition that can open up for possibilities, young blood, young minds, new ideas, so that we also don't see the mushrooming of independent candidates. I have always expressed this, that you see a lot of independent candidates mushrooming in Zimbabwe, while others, they may say it's an agenda to split the vote, but we also have to understand it in a context where the traditional opposition is not opening up space for new political actors. So it's also important that the current opposition needs to realize that there is a whole new generation now that is also becoming active and want to be part in the political processes of our country, including contesting in elections in these important positions. So they need to open up so that the trend we are seeing about a lot of opposition candidates coming up or declaring their candidature, that goes down as well if space is opened up, if some specific seats are allocated for those, if they are genuinely invited and given specific seats, so that we have one grand coalition that is very broad, including civil society members, social movements, students who are also important part of this struggle. All segments of our societies that are important, including the churches. This is what we want to see. The women, we have seen there is a concern. The current coalition, barring Mai Mujuru, who is leading PRC, there are very few women in leadership positions there. That must change. Something must happen. When it comes to the youth, very, very few are being considered. Because I think in our opposition we can see that we have got some members of parliament who have been coming again and again and again since 2000, right? Even in the opposition. This is not healthy for democracy. This is what we are fighting for. Let new ideas come in, new blood come in, new strategies. And this is why we can take how we can take our struggle forward. Otherwise, we risk stagnation. We can stand at one place and not moving. And we may already, in terms of opposition circles, have reached there. But let's use 2018 as a process to transition ourselves. And post-2018, of course, events on the ground are showing that the ground is fertile for new politics, new ideas, new actors. Owen, how are you? Thank you for joining. Teresa, you are saying only the people can avert the West. Paul, you are saying this is your time and season, people, for change. Vim, you are saying, Vimzi, you are saying opposition, hapana, hapana. I really wanted Tsvangirai to be the president soon, but I feel his situation per fair could have him appoint a new president for MDC to move forward. Colin, thank you for joining. Yeah, I think what you are saying, Vimzi, and what I can agree with you is that our opposition is not showing good enough. We don't see them on the ground. Of course, this week we have started to see, I think, Advocate Chamisa. He has been doing some activities. Yesterday he was in Chikomba, I think. And that's commendable. Every time they do something, let's also say this is a good thing. We want to see them on the ground. We want to see them communicating a message to the people, giving people hope. This is what they have to do. They are campaigning. These are the guys who will be on the ballot next year. So they must show up. They must show their faces to the people. But it's not enough. So I agree with you. Our opposition is letting us down. They should be there quite often. And this is not happening. We will continue to speak out. We will continue to support a progressive agenda. But we are not blind followers. So we will keep on asking difficult questions. And we need answers for those questions. Sharon, thank you for joining. Peshi, thank you for joining. Ba Murizi, thank you for joining. Ernest Tembo, thank you. Shepherds, thank you for joining. Hamuchki Gurai, what if such a coalition doesn't materialize? Yes, that's a very good question. But you may understand that we are still potentially 9 months away from elections. And we have seen some other countries, or there are some cases where coalitions are actually finalized maybe 3 months before elections or so, and so forth. So when we still have this long time, we cannot discount or discredit that that may not happen. And as citizens, we may also not want to be seen siding or endorsing one coalition over the others. This early is too early. What we need to do is to shepherd all of them, to force them and their leaders to have difficult conversations, to come around a round table and discuss issues that affects Zimbabwe, not personality issues. I think when the MDC alliance, for example, came together, there was a realization that the only difference that were there were personal egos. And they were saying this, oh, Morgan Tsvangirai said this, Tendai Biti said this, Wilson Mube said this. So we have to understand that when our leaders are not united, and they are also actually telling us that they are not united because they simply hate each other. That's a lame argument to come from people who are purporting to fight the struggle on our behalf, or who want to be our representative, or people who want to see our country transitioning from dictatorship to a true democracy. That's hogwash. They must not say that. They have to talk issues about, about how to move the developmental agenda for our country. They have to talk issues to do with ideological differences. And we don't hear these arguments. So if you find we have got 70 political parties, we have got 3 different alliances, but their difference are not on ideology. So what is the difference based on? Okay, I challenge you, go and read the bill document from Mujuru. Now try to have access around the smart document from MDCT. Have access to the document by Nkosana of APA. Access to the document by Manyika of Build Zimbabwe. What all these political parties are proposing is more or less one thing. Fundamentally, there is no difference when it comes to the ideology of the country or of the political parties. It's not that others are left, right, center, right, or no. It's not that. So if we don't have that difference, what is it that's separating people from discussing? Mind you, for 2018, the greatest problem that Zimbabweans have, it's not my Mujuru, okay? The greatest problem it's the problem that we have currently, it's ZANU-PF. And a possibility of a Mugabe dynasty. Mugabe wants to leave Grace Mugabe as our president. Grace has declared that she wants to be president. Grace is already campaigning to be the president of Zimbabwe. So if we keep on talking disunity in the opposition or progressive movement, we are going to see a Grace presidency. So that has to be clear, that while there is infighting, let's also take advantage. But why do we need to take advantage of ZANU-PF when we are not united among ourselves? So the first port of call is for the opposition to be united. And then talk about where else should we strengthen or strategize or take advantage of. So there is still hope, Gurai, that we can still have one coalition. And we must sing this. We must preach Nimbe Kwese Kwese. We must preach Tikabatana Tinokunda. Singa Bambana Siatoba as Zimbabweans. We have to understand this language. We have to understand that our country is diverse on ethnicity. Our country is diverse on racial grounds. Our country is diverse on religious grounds. Let's embrace all these differences to transition our nation, so that our children, our grandchildren, when they look back, when they read their country's history, we are part of that process that played a critical role, you and I, to make sure that Zimbabwe has transitioned from this dictatorship. It's been a long 37 years. It's been a painful 37 years. So many lives have been lost. So many people have been jailed, including myself. I have been in those cells. Anybody who has been speaking against that government, I bet they have faced those consequences. Let's keep on speaking. Of course, there is a cost to it as long as Mugabe is there. But we can do this. We are the citizens. We have a future. Mugabe is 94 years. He's approaching the sunset of his life. And we are getting to the stage. Let's keep on speaking. Let's keep on speaking against this evil regime. And let's make sure that we try by all means to avoid our country descend into a civil war, civil strife. We have already endured enough for the past 37 years. The last thing that we want in our country is another war that is instigated by selfish, greedy, and megalomaniac leaders. This shouldn't happen to our people. It shouldn't happen to us. We don't deserve that. Blessing Mhlanga, thank you for joining. Gavin, thank you for joining. Ratizo, thank you. And you are saying the opposition fails us, to be honest. They are not as hungry for it as we would love to see. Sometimes I feel like my only hope is the ruling party meltdown. Yeah, so you are right there, and we have started to see a lot of people expressing this opinion that could be ironic. that what Grace Mugabe actually is effectively doing, she has managed to, to destroy ZANU-PF to the level that probably people in the opposition maybe for a long time have not managed. And I have repeatedly in this broadcast criticized the opposition leadership for not being proactive. We don't see the opposition leaders on the ground carrying out some activities, putting out a message there. So, for example, if I can ask the audience here, what is the message that the MDC Alliance is putting forward? I mean, in one line or in one phrase, you don't get this message. It's not yet out there. Zimbabwe Yadzoka has got a Nimbe message. Nimbe kwese kwese. Zimbabwe Yadzoka is saying tikabatana tinokunda, singabambana siyachoba. We need these catchphrases that express hope to our people. And we don't have that message yet from the opposition. Okay? And let's keep on asking them, where is this message? Where is this hunger? So, otherwise, we are talking of a captured opposition. And that's the worst that we are afraid to actually discuss about. I would still like to believe that we have some genuine people here in the opposition fighting for the people. But we have to scrutinize as we move forward, as we demand unity and we don't get it. Because if the demand is coming from the grassroots, what Zimbabwe Yadzoka, Maibuye is Zimbabwe, we have effectively demonstrated to the political leadership that the people at grassroots are united. The people at grassroots are asking for unity. So if you see our comrades conducting activities, you see comrades from NPP, comrades from Zimfest, comrades from MDCT, comrades from PDP, comrades from RDZ. All these comrades forming one team, running campaigns for Zimbabwe Yadzoka, a mere social movement. So why is it that the political leadership at the top, they tell us that unity is impossible? So these are the hard questions that we need to pose to the political leadership. And we don't get answers when we ask them. Only for them, when they have united around a certain cause, they will start to tell us that the differences they have are personal. And we won't accept that. We shouldn't accept that. This is why we are moving away from the politics of personalities. If I am not there, if I am not in Zimbabwe, if I am not in Mutare, Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe must be in a position to run programs. I don't need to be in Zimbabwe as a precondition for the movement to be functional. If that happens, then we have to question our leadership skills. Because as a leader, we must have many other leaders around us. A good leader must breed many other leaders around who can take forward. For example, yesterday, I think you guys who watch our updates, you saw that we had programs in Kadoma, Harare, and I was not aware that people in Chinoi were also carrying out a program. And this is what you want when citizens become proactive and start to participate in their processes on their own. When we are not even aware that there are some activities going on, you just see some evidence of people going around the communities. Or you just get some messages that your people, we have seen the people for Zimbabwe Yadzoka going around in Chinoi. This is what we must aim for, as civil leaders, as political leadership. So it's not an excuse that our leaders are not in the country. It's not an excuse that our leaders are not, at work at present. Activities must go on. The MDC Alliance must continue to have public events. We must continue to see some rallies from MDCT. And we must continue to see some events from NPP. And we haven't seen the MDC Alliance, for example, going into other provinces besides Harare and Bulawayo. But we see ZANU-PF every day crisscrossing the country. And why should we think that victory is always certain? Why should we always rely on a protest vote? Let's go there and talk to the people. Nathan, thank you for joining. Alex, thank you for joining. Zed, thank you for joining. Ru, Dr. Kebos for president. Yes, it started as a joke, Zimbabweans. It started as a joke, Zimbabweans. When we started to express some fears that there are chances here that Grace Mugabe can actually become a president of Zimbabwe. From the events of 2017, we have actually seen that there has been a bedroom coup. So there had been a coup d'etat in Zimbabwe, but it has been in the bedroom, the Mugabes. Grace Mugabe has captured power from Robert Mugabe. So effectively, as we speak here, the president of Zimbabwe is Grace Mugabe. She's the one who is pulling all the strings. And this is something that we cannot disagree on. I mean, we can see it publicly that she's the one who is pulling the strings, right? And she's the one who is going to lead the ZANU-PF campaign into 2018. And her team, Kasukuwere, Jonathan Moyo, all those guys. So she is effectively the leader of Zimbabwe. But what she is doing, she's actually taking it further. Okay? So she has not done this, but she has, since yesterday, declared that she wants to be the president. And she has put forward her candidature to the electorate. And today she was communicating to the people that give me the job and see if I will not perform. So she is already on the campaign trail for 2018 as a presidential candidate. So we may actually see Grace Mugabe going into 2018 as a presidential candidate. That there is that very possibility. Or if that doesn't happen, Grace Mugabe is going to be the first vice president. If she's the first president, then of course Mugabe, for some reason, he can travel out of the country, or Grace can be in the country as acting president, and Mugabe can probably resign, being incapacitated or something. When Grace is acting, they can create that scenario. And effectively, Grace Mugabe, the acting president at that time, becomes the president. So it's very easy to see a Mugabe president once she's vice president. Because what Robert Mugabe needs to just do is to excuse himself from the duty while Grace is acting president. Then effectively, according to our constitution, she becomes the leader. And then we have got about 90 days for a fresh election for her to consolidate. But we have already seen that she's consolidating the structures, traditional leadership, church community, the white garments, the youth, everything in ZANU-PF is coalescing around Amai. So this is becoming a real possibility. But in the event we are going for elections in 2018, we can avoid this as citizens. We can become proactive, mass mobilize, coalesce around movements that are doing work that is visible on the ground to make sure that we reach as many people as possible. Mind you, we need to reach all those people who are in Rufaro. We need to reach all those chiefs, the sub-books. We need to go into these communities. Yes, we are doing some marvelous work on social media. But what percentage of our people who are going, the voting population is on social media? What percentage is that? So let's keep this in mind and understand that the broad majority of people, we have to physically reach them. So we need some kind of infrastructure or a movement that already has this infrastructure going on. And Zimbabwe Yadzoka has managed to establish this network in all 10 provinces of the country, in all 91 political districts of the country. We have got representatives, we can have activities. So if you want us to have an activity in Mutora Shanga tomorrow, we can do that. If you want to see an activity in Chipinge tomorrow, we can do that. So it shows how robust we have become. But we rely on you citizens, and we need more people to come on board, to strategize, come with ideas, support us in any way possible, volunteer, give us bond paper, say that you can print something for us, give us 2 t-shirts, print flyers for us. I mean, so that we reach as many people before 2018. Because there is always a law of being in, complicity. Yes, it's ZANU-PF that has run down the country. Yes, it's Mugabe and his dictatorial tendencies that have seen as being, driven out of the country, or those who are in the country, the economy not performing, the country having no currency. But we also have to understand that we are complicit as citizens. When these things are happening and we keep quiet, we are also part of the problem. So that must be clear to us all. It must not be a problem. It must not be a few group of activists who should speak out. It has to be all of us. Okay? Ruramai, how are you doing? They have no money. The opposition. I assume you are saying the opposition doesn't have money. They may not have money, but it may also to do with lack of organizing. And of course, for some political parties with a history, it's also to do with their they have failed to be accountable in certain areas when they got these monies. Because of course, people cannot continue to donate blindly. People want to see how their money is being used. And we also understand there's been a lot of mismanagement of resources, whether, of course, people want to talk about it or they don't want to talk about it. So it also affects the confidence of people in making those donations time in, time again. We also have to look this around a tired message, because there has been a message floating around for the past 17 years. And when you float a message for the past 17 years of change, and change is not coming, then of course we also have to always redefine our messages so that it resonates. So we have to, there are so many factors here other than just money. But I think Pedzisai Ruwanya, one of the top political analysts, I think he posted reminding that someone like Morgan Tsvangirai, just for argument's sake, he always score votes. And for Morgan Tsvangirai, we know these are real votes of over 1 million every time in a presidential election since he started. Okay? And at one point even defeating Robert Mugabe. That's 2008. But we know that Tsvangirai has been winning all along. So for argument's sake, if you just say those faithful 1 million plus people who have been voting for Tsvangirai, if they were going to donate $1 to Movement for Democratic Change, you are talking about MDC having 1 million to run a campaign. So my point is, sometimes it's not about lack of resources, because what we need to move away as a people, as Zimbabwe, as Africa, is this dependency on donors. To think that without funding from donors, we cannot be proactive or achieve our developmental goals. We have all the resources that we want as a people to develop, to move forward. We have to be organized. We have to make this organized, resources organized. But we also need to induce confidence, to have some working mechanisms that show that when we get these resources, we are using them in right places. We are doing correct prioritizations. So the argument about lack of money, yes, we may say in this election there is lack of funding in the opposition, but there are some innovative ways that we can also do as citizens to fund either political parties or citizens' movement. For example, Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe, it's 100% funded by Zimbabweans, both in Zimbabwe and in the diaspora. We are not funded by donors, we are funded by citizens. And Zimbabwe Yadzoka received donations of $1, $2, $5, $10 from our membership, or from generous donations from Zimbabwe, or from the citizens. So it's not about getting 1 million at one go as a donation to run an effective campaign. It's about putting those resources into use and making right prioritizations on those little resources that you do have. So if you were wondering how should you donate to Zimbabwe Yadzoka or help Zimbabwe Yadzoka, the marvelous we are doing as Zimbabwe Yadzoka, these are $3, $5, $10. We take any donation. Don't ever think that when you send $1 to Zimbabwe Yadzoka, we are going to say it's too little. No. Those are the donations that are sustaining the work we are doing. And all those campaigns we are doing, believe you me, some of them we are doing them with $50, $90. Can you believe this? So we are reaching probably 1,000 or more people on $50. So when you donate your $50, for example, you know it's going to reach potentially 1,000 to 1,500 potential voters. So, and this is why you have seen us now, doing door-to-door campaigns. They are effective. We are meeting people face to face, but we are using less resources. And people are also doing this in the local communities they are living in. And they also choose for themselves which time suits them to carry out these campaigns. And so political parties would expect them to have even a robust network, but we don't see it at play. So it shouldn't be about activities just waiting for the central or focal point. It should be about building a system where, when it's activated, people have confidence to be part of the process and take ownership to that process. And this is what you see in Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuya Zimbabwe. For example, yesterday they did a program that we were not even aware of. So we just get videos and we get pictures and people going around their local communities, urging people to register to vote. And we are beginning seeing people doing this even without our t-shirts, because we cannot afford to give all of them. We begin to see them without flyers sometimes, because it's knocking your neighbor's door. Tell them to register and vote. Tell them to vote, and tell them to be prepared to defend that vote if need be. Sounds good, your strategy. Yes, Rurama, I think strategy, we do have them. But this is what I've been also saying, that when there's no opportunity for new ideas to emerge, you may see some old ideas being circulated. I think we are intelligent enough as a nation and as a people to not to come up with a plan of upstaging ZANU-PF almost for 20 years now, or 37 years in total. So I think we are too smart for that. And these activities, we have to do something as citizens. But the problem as citizens of Zimbabwe, we have also for a long time subcontracting our struggle to the political elites. So we have to understand the political elites, they are also fighting for their own battles. You have to understand the sitting members of MP. Most of them in the oppositions, they will be re-elected because those are safe seats. So win or lose, they will continue to get to enjoy their packages. They will continue to drive their Mercedes-Benz. The state has to buy them new cars next year, when they are coming in. They get salaries, and you see some of them even demanding these iPads and what. And many times you have heard our MPs talking about salary increment, complaining about not getting allowances or something like that. Some have argued, that of course these are, they are employed, or they have to get these things. But of course the argument from us is always like, that space must be used to discuss issues of national fundamental importance, about, the children that doesn't have a school uniform, about this new curriculum that are being introduced in our schools where, most of the students don't have computers, about hospitals that doesn't have medicines, potholes in the roads, our industry is dead, about why we are sitting on so many minerals but we are poor. So we don't hear these discussions. This discourse doesn't come up. And our leaders, they focus on narrow issues. Some of you who have been following us, our page, you saw last week a borehole that is contaminated in Mbare, Chishawasha flats. Effectively, people were drinking sewage. There are pictures showing drinking sewage, and citizens were not aware that when this borehole was put there, it hit, some sewer pipes or something like that. And who do you blame? We also have got MDC councillors in there. We also have... So it's a whole lot of issues. We have to look around these issues about, should we keep all these people for 20 years? What is it that they are doing as local representatives? These are difficult conversations, but we need to start those kind of conversations. And probably this is why you are seeing a lot of young people who are now choosing to run as independents. They no longer believe in party politics. They have lost confidence in the opposition. And we need to talk about it as citizens. Enias, thank you for joining. Boris Eni Chikwana, thank you for joining. Michael, thank you. Chido, thank you. Tafadzwa, you are saying more independent candidates means there is no space in the current pro-change political formations. Eunice, thank you for watching. Yes, so I agree with you, Tafadzwa, and I think it's something that we need to emphasize, that when you see new political candidates emerging, especially the trend we are having of so many independents, the traditional leadership can just ignore this or dismiss this as forces, destabilization forces to split the vote. But we need also to understand it in a way where the opposition is not opening up space for new actors, for new ideas, for innovation. So when you do that, naturally, you are creating another third force. So we see that a lot of people are declaring their candidature as independents. If you don't open up space for them, if it's done in a haphazard way, then we don't harness, we don't harvest those ideas that we should channel, in a common, silo for the development of our nation. Yes, Vims, you are talking of Chamisa, and you are saying Chamisa has been at it, but he is an underdog. Yes, of course I agree with you. Names like Nelson Chamisa and others are always names that are mentioned. I may not discuss this here. Those are internal MDC issues. But of course, they also have to look into it. Of course, if Morgan Tsvangirai still has the energy to do this for 2018, if the time allows it. But these are internal processes, purely internal processes. But if they can be open about these issues, it also gives confidence to the electorates. Because when we go around as social movements, Zimbabwe Yadzoka, Maibuya in Zimbabwe, campaigning, asking people to register to vote, the issue of the candidature is always an issue that is being asked, as Avoid has raised before. So if you want us to register, we are going to register, but who are we going to vote for? And yet we are not even sure who is going to be the president of a united front. So on that front, the opposition must deal with that issue quickly, and make sure that we have got an option and an answer to the people as we move around. Sakadai akaitwa appointed as MDC, then I'm sure Anofamba Nebora even more. Well, I think if they are decisive about the leadership issues as an internal process, of course you can see a lot of activities, because this is what we are lacking. So, but my point is, even if Tsvangirai is still the leader, even if Tsvangirai is not in Zimbabwe, we still need to see a lot of activities. When he is not present, there should be some form of activities in the party. Mind you, they've got 3 vice presidents, so they have to spread out. Not only MDCT, because it can be unfair, but we also have other 50 political parties. Where are they? We just don't want to see 50 political parties on the ballot, but not going around communities. Especially this time when we are encouraging people to register to vote. If people don't register, then who is going to vote? So all political parties must go out in unison, talking about registration process, about BVR and what it is, and assisting people who are being turned away. Betha, thank you for joining. David King, thank you for joining. Joshua Kufa, thank you. Blessing. Tendai Mdawarara, Mary Ndoro, Chamnorwa. Please, can you accept my video chat? Where is your video chat? I don't know Chamnorwa, but I'm sure there are some people where an add button is appearing, but on yours there is no add button. I don't know whether it's to do with whether we are friends or we are not friends. I'm on Facebook, I'm not sure, but I can't see any add button on your name. Okay, Nicholas, you are saying the only solution for Zimbabwe political crisis is to have rebels Wapanduke. Just 3 months Mugabe will retire, but besides that there won't be any successful election in Zimbabwe. Forget about it. Forget about the ballot. It's a waste of time. Yes, Nicholas, I think people express those sentiments, but Zimbabwe Yadzoka Maibuye Zimbabwe, we are a peaceful movement, and we strongly believe that Zimbabwe will transition to democracy by peaceful means. We strongly believe that if we can mass mobilize, if a lot of people can vote, if we can manage to generate excitement into these elections, if this election can be a mirror of 1980, that kind of excitement and voter turnout, definitely Mugabe is a history, because even experts in political, in rigging, they will tell you that rigging has got a ceiling. So once they reach that ceiling effect, you can't rig anymore. It's about whether enough people have been mobilized to vote. It's whether we have generated a lot of interest. This is why this registration process have to be so much important. The figures are telling us that the people who have registered is over 1 million now, and the target for ZEC is 7 million. So I think we need to reach ZEC, those projections, or even exceed, if possible. That's needed for a victory. So the more people that register, the better it is for the people. The less people who register and participate, it gives an advantage to Mugabe and ZANU-PF, because it will be easy for them to play with figures. But we can still do this. If you are in the diaspora, make sure you have contacted your village. Make sure Zimbabwe Yadzoka has reached to your village. Help us to do that. We can do it for you. Alternatively, make some calls. Reach all those people. Talk to them. Influence them, because you have that influence. Use it. Those in urban areas, most of us have got where we call our rural home. Let's make sure there's a form of communication. Let's ask them if they have registered. So if you can personally influence up to 10 people, definitely the election is going to be for the people of Zimbabwe, and we will avoid a Mugabe dynasty. So this is, I think, what we want. So Nicholas, the movement Zimbabwe Yadzoka don't believe in use of violence. We don't advocate for, for arms to dethrone a constitutionally elected government. Although we know, of course, Robert Mugabe rigged elections every time, but we don't use force to remove such a government. And Mugabe was defeated in 2018 by us, the citizens. We only failed to reclaim power, or to claim power. Mugabe can also be defeated in 2018, but we need strategies around that. How can we, claim power, or how can we mobilize our people to defend their vote? Okay, Vimzi. Okay, so comrades, thank you for joining. It has been a long discussion around this issue. We have to be careful as a nation. There is a strong possibility that the country is degenerating into civil strife. The pronouncements or the speech by the First Lady today poses it's a security threat to the nation of Zimbabwe. Those kind of sentiments, that kind of speech, even though she calls herself Maifira Kurewa, it must not be allowed from a senior person, a senior citizen, and a senior person in ZANU-PF. Of course, Grace has effectively captured ZANU-PF, so I believe she can do what she pleases. But as citizens, we have to condemn that, and we have to make sure we are doing all we can to avoid that Zimbabwe goes into a civil war. What we don't want now as Zimbabweans is that possibility. But what is going on in ZANU-PF, the succession issues in ZANU-PF, they are now issues of national interest. They are posing a security threat to the nation. It is very clear that Mugabe failed to handle his succession issues in a correct manner. And as citizens, we also have to be careful as we move on. Even when the country transitions to a new leader, Let's try to make sure we are not going to anoint another dictator. Let's continue to speak out. Let's continue to demonstrate. Let's exercise those rights that are enshrined in our constitution. Those literal rights that we have, let's continue to exercise them. But let's continue to pursue peace. Let's continue to give people hope. And let's always understand that once Zimbabwe has begin to transition, the turnaround of Zimbabwe, it's something that can be done in 10 years or less. We have got a lot of expertise. We've got a lot of partners that are willing to help the nation of Zimbabwe to rebuild. And it's not going to be something that is going to be so difficult. We have the necessary human resources and the natural resources for Zimbabwe to transition. What we just need is an empathic leadership, a sympathetic leadership that talks issues of national importance, a leadership that talks against tribalism, a leadership that talks against regionalism, a leadership of Zimbabwe that will build a nation. Because as we are in Zimbabwe, we are not a nation. We can't call Zimbabwe a nation. We are fragmented. What we look forward or what we encourage is a responsible leadership that speaks issues of national importance. So thank you, citizens, for this space where we can converge and discuss issues of national importance. Join me next week on both our Zimbabwe Yadzoka page and here on my wall when I give some weekly updates about what's happening in Zimbabwe. But obviously today I couldn't resist this because the succession issues in ZANU-PF are out of hand, and as citizens we need to start to discuss these issues as national issues and not just dismiss them as factional ZANU-PF issues. Let's continue to challenge our opposition leadership and let's continue to mobilize for 2018. Follow Zimbabwe Yadzoka, Maibuye Zimbabwe. Participate in our activities. You are the leader that you have been waiting for. Musamirire kuti kune mamwe ma leaders achauya. Imi ndimi ma leaders of the people. Speak out. Spread this message. Let's unite around a common agenda. Let's fight against Mugabe dynasty in 2018 and even before. So, but always let's pray for our nation. Let's pray for peace in Zimbabwe. Let's pray for Africa. Let's also take action around these issues of national importance. I thank you so much for tuning in and see you again next week. Stay safe and let's pray for our people. Let's pray for peace and let's act towards that. And may God bless you and may you have a good evening and a wonderful week, and see you again on Friday. Keep following Zimbabwe Yadzoka, Maibuye Zimbabwe. Nimbe kwese kwese, tikabatana tinokunda, singabambana siyatoba. Thank you, Zimbabwe.